Okay, hi, and welcome back to video 3 of the Sapphire series. And I wanted to kind of cover some management functions and how things work within the application for those menu items here. I had to retake my video, so forgive me if I have to, or you see something that's already there, I may have to skip over it. But under the management menu, really you have the service control. So under IP control, we manage the agent, the active MQ. You may hear us and mention if you're in support that, hey, we need to stop the queue, removing any messages or something, and then restart it. We would do that here. But note also, too, the DNS DHCP always requires starting through the menu since it is jailed and it has a CH root environment. It needs to be started under this menu with a privileged user when it does that. But this is where we would start and stop the services. Under system, you're going to have other services and management. And that'll be things what you'll do for rebooting this appliance. You'll then have updates where we'll go through, I think, a different video for updating the operating system, the agents, the bind, the other functions. That's where we do all this here. So when we do packages and updates, we'll sometimes have ones that need to be done local. That gives you the ability to do a local update. You copy it to a stage folder. You'll run the command and it'll start the operating system upgrade or something. There are others that you can stage in the interface, and you can do it through the software packages that we'll discuss in some of the other IP control and operations management videos. But from here, you can also update, say, from USB, and then the check to update goes and looks at the executive. So some control over how you get these updates to the system, patching, things that are needed. But we can do this remotely and centrally. Now, the patches are where we apply things that are specific, say, to security updates, or if we have patches that are going to correct an issue from the operating system. That, we don't ever have that, right? But when it ever happens, never happens. If it does, we'll have the ability to correct it there. Now, the admin password for app admin, you change here. If you have root access, of course, you can do that too. So if you add the operator account, that gives you operator that you can then do sudo. And under sudo, you can run commands as privileged user to get down to that level of changing the username password through the shell. So if you want to do that, you can. And then the cloud in it's another discussion for cloud in terms of the cloud appliance. And we'll talk about that when we get into that cloud environment and deploying there. I'll have to see if I can set up an environment to let me tape that and go through that process. Now, our date and time is really where we're going to set the time, which we can do now for Crony and TPD, whatever our selection is. And then we can see the stats. That's the help. And then the stats will show you whether it's excellent, improving, degrading, whatever that is. And then it'll show you effectively if you lose this sync, you'll lose 1.7 seconds a day. And this is primarily because of a hypervisor. If you don't dedicate the resources and CPU, and if it becomes heavily burdened with other guests, it can skew. It can use up the resources, which is used to keep that time in sync. So just keep that in mind. You always want to use a real NTP server for this to do that. And now we'll get down to services, which will really be the last thing here. And services are going to give us that up-down state. So everything we've done at this point enabled it. We expect to see it all up. But if it were down, I would have the ability to go to the system and start it, or stop it if I wanted to explicitly stop a service so I could do some troubleshooting or maintenance of it. So that is effectively the management, really very clear, plain. The upgrades and procedures for patches and things like that we'll cover in more detail in another operation, because there's quite a few. And I think what we'll do with that is we'll go through maybe a operating system upgrade from Sapphire 14, go to 16, and then do some patches there to go to IP Control 16 as well. So we'll show some various agent upgrades and OS upgrades. Maybe we'll cover that in the next video. So back down on the utilities, I want to talk on a couple utilities, one of which is called dnstop. And our dnstop is effectively a utility. Let's see if I can pull it up here where I had it the last time around. And let's just do the help here. dnstop is a PCAP for DNS packet captures. It allows us to specify v4, v6, where the query's response is all, and then some filtering abilities, but more importantly down into the domain and to n number of dots in the domain. So starting from com, that being one level, up to 9 levels deep of dots. So that, if you're looking for malware, if you're trying to troubleshoot all of these obscure and DGA type security, hacks and things like that, you would see it most likely as you go multiple levels deep in the filter. So with that, and I'm going to see if I can find my dnstop again. And you'll see all the other ones are working there. So now I'll tell it here, go ahead and use v4, go ahead and do all the packets. Let's see if I can, if I had any dig out here. Yeah. I'm on a different server. So if I do like Azure, Microsoft, let's see if I have any others up there, Signal Labs, and so on, you're going to see here the clients. And then if I do the question mark, shift question mark, you'll see the different options. So S for source, destination, query types, O and R. So SDTOR. So we got S, which is the source, T, type, D, destination, we've got O, which is the opcode, and then R, response code. So if you're looking for a whole bunch of server fails, index domains, things like that, you can. And then the last one, if you'll see, is just the numbers 1 through 9. So starting at 1, as I mentioned, com being our top level, you'll see all of the top level domains. 2, getting into your parent level domains. 3, 4, 5, and we can walk all the way up. Now, there may not be something in there, but if you see some of these that are at 9 levels deep, you can, maybe start to look and understand why are you doing 9 levels of subnet domains deep to get to that point. So that's one of the utilities that's included in the shell as IncAdmin to help you troubleshoot. The other is we have a utility which is called dhcpd-pools, excuse me. And I'm going to go over to another server and show you that. And what this does for you effectively is it allows you to show all of the DHCP active leases, scopes, subnet, shared networks, and others. And let's see if I can do this for you real quick. And in that help, what you're going to see here then is we'll tell it to config in the leases file. The format gives you the ability to output it to different types. But the important types here, like XML with active leases and JSON with active leases, those are the two I tend to use all the time. The rest of these, if you're doing template tables, or if you're trying to do some comparison for utilization, the primary, the backup, you might want to get down into some of the touched and percent and TNC other values here. But for what I'm looking for, I'm just going to do a simple command, tell it to pipe it out, tell it to pipe it to JQ. And this is then, it's going to give me all of the subnets, the scopes, the define use, and their parameters. And then it's going to give me a list of the MAC addresses and their IP addresses. So I have at times made a program out of this where I can tell it to upload to the cloud automation appliance and then process tables, or look up IP addresses if I want to then take this, embellish it with sorting information, or look it up into IPControl and get the other details. I can, because it's kind of plain here in terms of lookup. So there's a number of things you could do there, but I'm just going to kind of show you the utility, at least that's there. And then you have others that we can get into, like tcpdump, where everybody loves tcpdump. We always need to do that to look at our packets and capturing and so on. So we'll have here, our like DNS53, and all of these use setcap. So you can actually see the, as IncAdmin, you log in, you'll have permissions to do this. Okay. Well, let's see if we can. All right. So you can see this, or if you're doing DHCPD troubleshooting, you can. If you're looking at PTR, all this information can be explained to you. And then you can, of course, dump this out to file and save it as you want to temp, or something else where you can go extract it later and look at it in Wireshark or something like that. And the last utility is, instead of traceroute, things like that, we use tracepath. And so in tracepath, it's basically the same. You just tell it, like if you want to do a specific port, 53, and then my IP address, and it'll go out and tell us the reverse lookup and functions there, and give you some utilities. But there are a number of other utilities. I won't go through all of them, but they're there for purposes of troubleshooting and debugging. We don't want to hide anything from you. And in terms of like database files, configuration files, etc., whenever we do deployments, we back them up. So there are files here that you can make backups of and copy these off the files if you need, but just know that they're there. And then you can always get the primary and do the same thing and back them up and automate that process. We do have a cron tab as well. So if I wanted to send something into cron to set up a scheduler, you have that access and can do that capability there too. And then from an administrative point, we do have Inc admin, but we support Active Directory, and we have a command line, and I'll go through one of those videos for that. In a command line that actually sets up those administrators and allows you to then define them, set up AD as your type, and authenticate at that source. So thanks again. I think this is my third video now for this. I hope that this one comes through in the audio, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks again for joining.